Thank you all for coming out. This is a really nice, perfect afternoon to be out here. So I thought it was actually going to be brutal, but it's perfect. That breeze from the lake. Um, Thanks for coming. We're called Neti-Neti, and yes, Matt Evans. I'm happy Matt's flight made it in on time. And I want to speak a little bit about this project, one, because I'm just a talker, and I always speak because I think context is really important, because improvised music is a social music, and that's how I've always felt about it. And in these times where community is the greatest weapon against fascism that we have, and I think we have to lean in to that. And improvised music not only has an amazing listening community, but the act of improvising with people is responding together in real time to things that are emergent, that are often very unpredictable, very scary. And improvisers have a very special kind of lens for the world, because that's what we do. We react in real time to changing situations. We work with what we have, and we do it in a communal way. And this project is very specific sort of lens, which is it's about grief. And grief is one of those universal things that maybe you don't realize is universal till you encounter the experience. And of course, there's many forms of grief. And one thing we realized, we started this project in 2020, and in 2019, both of us lost very important people. Actually, I'm thinking about this person, Ellen O'Mara, who passed away in 2019 because she was a Chicago person. She went to Columbia College here, and Matt's partner also passed in the same 6 months apart. And we didn't really know each other well, but we started just having a coffee and talking about our experiences of grief and loss. And then we started playing together. And of course, it was also during the pandemic, so there was another layer of grief to everything. And as we kept playing, we just noticed, one, that all our conversations were seeping into our playing. And also, as things were unfolding in the world, how personal grief and sort of this global grief, how interconnected they were. And over the last 2 years, 3 years, almost of genocide in Palestine, also, actually we should say over 70 plus years, over 75 years of genocide in Palestine, what's happening in southern Lebanon, and the Lebanese government selling out their people in an extraordinary fashion, working with America and Israel. I think about Venezuela and the folks there under the rubble. It's an absolutely horrific situation that has been exacerbated by decades of US sanctions. We have destabilized so many parts of Latin America. We see a rightward fascist turn in Latin America that it's very, very scary times. And of course, here in the United States, I think of the folks in Delaney Detention Center. I think the folks in Broadview here in Chicago. I think of the Broadview 6 and now the Prairie Land folks who are getting, just charged with conspiracy charges for moving a box of anti-fascist magazines, getting 30 years in prison. We are not on the edge of encroaching fascism. We are in it. And there is the thing about grief that I think is powerful. Sorry, I know this is a bit long-winded, but this is an improvisation as well. There is, grief can feel immobilizing, right? So you look at these images and you hear these stories and you can feel like, what can I do? I can't even deal. But when you learn to process grief, it can be quite powerful. Once you move through it, then you can start actually doing things. And what this is this is a ritual with all of you. And I invite you to think about anything you're grieving. You could be grieving a life that you wanted to have that you're not having. You could be grieving a loved one. You could be grieving the things that are happening in the world. It's not up to us to say what you're gonna maybe bring into this space if you want to participate. But I invite you to see what happens to do that with people instead of like by yourself on your phone at home. It's very powerful to do with people. And in many cultures, that is how you grieve. And so we have to give it space. We have to give it space to move through it. And doing it collectively and communally is the best, most beautiful and supportive way to do that. So we're going to invite you to do that with us. And yeah, thank you all for being here, and thank you to ESS and Option. And we're going to play for a while, and then I'll talk more. Thank you. Thank you.
I really appreciate what you said, going into the performance about grief and the ongoing process of it and experiencing it communally, which is something that I ton of forget about. And I think the thing I do think about is grief. And I feel like music is the way it can connect with people who have passed.
Yeah.
And that kind of spiritual space. But then I liked how you brought in the audience too, and like everyone together, and culturally. So I guess I just wanted to ask more about that and like how this group came to be. You gave some context, which I honestly appreciate a lot. But yeah, to go a bit more into that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because this is for the archive, I'll say again, Matt and I kind of almost formed our friendship through just talking about grief almost like conceptually or our experiences of it, because we had lost like two of like the closest people in our lives about 6 months apart in 2019. And so we just started meeting and having these conversations. And one of the things that was so one of the themes of those conversations was how linear, non-linear, not linear, the sort of the process of grieving was, and how, there's a period right after. I would say in the United States, I think actually we have a really culturally insane way of doing things, which is like you get like maybe a weekend off if it's a parent. Yeah. And then if it's anybody else, it's sort of like it's not even a thing to mention. I was teaching at the time. I missed one class. I think it was my best friend, amazing musician named Ellen O, and that's it. And so you're walking around with this feeling, and your whole world feels like it's crumbling, right? And the rest of the world is just moving. And, I went through actually the funeral ritual of the Hindu ritual, at least I'm Tamil. We have a very, it's very specific to the region and the sect and everything like that. We're Hindus. And so my uncle passed away last year around this time. And he was the first one in our family to come to the United States, and he actually was a physics researcher, and he was responsible for the development of crystallography, which is like in cancer treatment, like very was one of the fundamental things. But in that process, I saw how we grieve, because we never had one of those funeral rituals in America. That was our first time doing that, and 13 days. There's a condensed sort of version we do, but it is you touch the body, you anoint the body, you spend a lot of time with the body, because that's a thing, like for animals, if they don't see the body of the animal, they don't really it's like something that's very important to connect with. We have a very disembodied way of grieving. Yeah, that's right.
I agree. Yeah.
And so, you have like this kind of quick process where it's like, for us, it's like the family doesn't really leave the house, and people bring them food. It's like sitting Shiva in Judaism. So there's something about that where we were feeling like we were still in it, but then, a lot of people have moved on. And so we kind of were providing that space for each other. And then through playing music, it became like this way of sort of sitting with it and processing it. And I think the first time we really realized how it could resonate kind of collectively was we were playing actually in Montreal at Suoni Per for the Suoni Festival. And it was when Roe v. Wade was overturned. And it was, I believe, right after Uvalde also. Both of those things happened like in the same week, right? So, and we're in Canada, so it's like feels even weirder, or they're like asking us about guns. Like, does everybody have a gun? It's like, well, no, nobody we know, but, and then thinking about Roe v. Wade and the incredible grief of that. And now it's just like, it's gotten so much worse since then. I remember talking to the audience because it was almost like I was just thinking about it. So I just was talking to the audience about it. And I mean, this is something I do with elder ones also. It's not specific to this project. But the grief part, you know, when we spoke about that, a lot of people also like came up to us and said, yeah, like this is happening in Canada and this other thing. You know, I just noticed it was just bringing that concept into the room was doing something. And then so we started to realize like maybe this is something that feels important to do. And then that was in 2022. And then you think about everything that has happened since then. And now it feels like, oh my God, this, if you're not grieving kind of regularly, like this is something my therapist actually introduced to me, the idea of a grief meditation. Yeah. Like sitting and sort of picturing the grief like waves and sort of, it's like becoming familiar with the feeling of it because otherwise the waves will just come and drown you. But if you can like sit with it, give it time and space. So I was doing that through the whole genocide, like in Palestine, you would see these images like the worst thing you've ever seen in your entire life. I mean, a month ago I saw the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And that, I didn't even know it was possible. It was another image of a child, just, you know, something so gruesome. And then you're like doing that, and then you're like sending emails, and then, you know, it doesn't make any, and then you're like texting someone. So I sit with those images sometimes. It's very hard, but it feels like a way to release it and process it. And then doing that alone is quite hard. But I do find, even if we're not thinking of the same things, there's something about just being in a space with it that makes it more manageable. It makes it more possible to, like I said, to sort of move through it. Because it's the only way is through. And there's a meme that I remember Matt sent me early on that was like, the stages of grief, and it has, you know, the stages, and there's like lines between them, but it's just like a jumble of like chaotic lines. And we kind of called that meme the score for a while.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we've been thinking about it.
And do you feel like when you're performing, like today, you had some of those like images in your mind, like you were talking about doing the meditations? Are you treating it? Are you thinking about, you know, particular people or events, or are you kind of like in the performance time, it all kind of happens and channeling it? Channeling
is kind of the feeling, like where I'm just trying to be in my body, which is actually the hardest thing to do generally, because we are so, it's like disassociating is like the way that a lot of us just have learned to cope, right? You compartmentalize, you disassociate, which is not good. It's not good for you. I mean, because it's there. It's in your body. And so I think for me, you know, just having a lot of different embodied practices, a lot of, like we say, somatic, sometimes for this music, just really kind of trying to be as present as possible, which is kind of what you're trying to do when you meditate. So I would say in this setting, it's more about like the energy of the people in the space and just trying to let it move through, you know. But that's kind of why saying what I say at the beginning is almost like me. If I say it, it sort of is in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I mean, reading about you and things that you've said before, you bring up embodiment a lot. Yeah. And I really love that about your practice and performance, because to me, that is kind of a lot of the essence of improvisation and becoming more in your body and getting away from just living in your head.
Yeah. I mean, you would think as a vocalist that's sort of a given. Yeah. Because, I mean, that's one of the... Interesting instrument. Yeah, it's like, that's what I love about the voice, but it's not a given. It's like, I've sung entire concerts in the past where I've felt like totally disembodied and like not able to be present, and it's not good for improvisation. And over the years, like that's been a practice, is to really, really learn how to be fully present. And it's also like, I mean, it's kind of in my mind, also a decolonial practice, because so much of, you know, capitalism is like you're kind of become more machine than human being, right? It's a very dehumanizing system. Everything we see, I mean, it's to watch other people be dehumanized is dehumanizing for yourself. And I think people don't really, you know, even when Palestine comes up so much as to the fore when I think about grief. It's not the only place in the world where there is grief, but I think just the fact that the world has allowed something like that to happen has dehumanized all of us. We have lost a piece of ourselves, of our humanity. And I think embodiment is sort of a way, if you can kind of really be embodied, be communal. All of these things to me are also very like decolonial practices, a way of like resisting capitalism, a way of resisting the kind of structures of colonialism and white supremacy and patriarchy and, you know, all the ways in which we are, our bodies are controlled. I think about that as a woman too. Like every day we are losing a piece of bodily autonomy. Trans folks like are so under attack, and so it's a way of like reclaiming something, and yeah, it feels good too. It feels really good to be in your body, and so yeah, that's part of why it's so important. But it's I learned it from like really great improvisers, are so you can see how just in their body they are, you know.
Definitely. And I feel like, you know, what you were saying too about connecting it to being like a decolonial, like anti-capitalist practice, it kind of almost answers some other things I was thinking of, like what does it look like as an artist to be like a revolutionary and activist, and like what does it mean and how do you practice that? But I think you're kind of answering that a little bit too.
It's part of it. I wouldn't call myself a revolutionary, but I definitely cosplay revolutionary in like in the mentality, in the sort of call to arms on stage, like when I perform with elder ones, because I want that energy to be in the world. I think of someone like Nina Simone. It's like I mean, I do think of her as revolutionary, but it's almost like you're inciting. One of the ways I think of like what one of my roles could be is to incite people into wanting to be more engaged and maybe, you know, be revolutionary. And I also do, I mean, I shouldn't put this on record, but I do things in my neighborhood, which is a very immigrant neighborhood, that are relevant to the things that are happening right now. And so those are real ways in which like I do a lot of material things as well. But they bleed into the music. Like we've been organizing in New York these monthly, semi-monthly benefits for ICE detainees, because there's so many. There's like the legal fees of being detained. There's the, you know, if somebody, an earner of the family is detained, then that family has lost all their income. There are folks who are scared to go to work, and there's like a car service fund. There's so much money that needs to be raised. So I'm like, okay, I'm a musician. We could do a concert. Yeah. Like, I mean, but not just once. As regular, the Palestine fundraising has been going on now for years, like selling these items and continuing to try to do that. So there's the material end, there's the covert stuff, there's the agit-prop of like Elder Ones is very agit-prop music, like agitative propaganda, like we are trying to propagandize. That is exactly what that music is. Some people have told me like, wow, it's so heavy-handed. I'm like, yeah, that's the fucking idea.
There's definitely a place for that.
It was like, I'm sorry, this is not a nuanced music. Like we had, you know, the Elder Ones is probably like my most like explicit vehicle, and this is obviously about grief, but we just started to realize like how I don't even like the word political, but in terms of politics implies like to me a wheeling and dealing, and it's not really about that. It's about humanity. It's about justice, you know. And I think it was like this very organic process of realizing how connected, you know, personal grief and injustice and all these like that. There is a real grief. There's a grief, and we're grieving democracy. If we had a democracy, let's be real, before, we really are watching it slip away in real time. Although some nice things happened in New York this week. And I'm hoping that kind of that's people organizing collectively. That's all that is. That's what improvisation is. Bunch of people out there improvising. I was in 2020 canvassing in the rain with Zoran Mamdani when he was a state assembly candidate for that whole slate of 5 DSA candidates. 6 years later, you know, so I think there's a hopefulness to me in continuously thinking of ourselves as a collective. And so as musicians, we have this like incredible like luxury blessing of getting to go around the world and play with people and meet audiences in different places with different sort of things happening. We like Elder Ones toured in Latin America in 2024 for the first time, and it was like to talk to folks there and hear, you know, what was going on there. Like that for me, this is the antidote this to fascism is collectivism and community. And I think as improvisers, like we really kind of know on a you know, this nonverbal level what that kind of connecting with other people means, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate, because it's like you have this, it's a very like holistic viewpoint of everything, and you're taking in like, the material, the spiritual, the interpersonal, and it's all there. And I appreciate that there's a lot of not just talking about the issues, but there's a lot of action with it. And I sometimes feel like with music, and there can be different fads in like any field, but you know, fads of like, oh, for a few months people are like anti-Spotify. and then you see then the band that's like, you know, like so-called punk band like endorse Spotify. Like, if you know, like these fads will happen, and artists have to like, you see the people who kind of like take it on for like a little piece of time, but then you see the ones who kind of like keep it in their practice. And I think that's really important to like keep to those values.
Yeah, it's, I mean, the last time I used Spotify was in 2018, but, yeah, we did have the band's catalog on Spotify, and I was like, wait, what? Is it it's almost like you didn't realize it was an option to not be on it.
Yeah.
And for the podcast Outer National, I interviewed Greg Saunier of Deerhoof. Yeah. And I interviewed him the day that Deerhoof left Spotify. It was just cool. Like by coincidence. Like I saw the announcement that morning and was talking to him about it. And I was like, how did you guys come to that decision? You know, like what did that look like? And he was like, we were in the car. And we just were like, hey, should we get off Spotify? They're like funding military AI tech that's fueling all this, you know. Yeah. And then we saw the Anthropic, like the AI company that was responsible for the bombing of the girls' school in Manab in Iran, which is like horrific, like no accountability for that, right? So this is like a form of, okay, there's no accountability on that level, like leaving Spotify in a way. It feels like a small gesture, but it's a material gesture. And I was like, how did you guys come to that decision? He was like, I just said, like, hey, should we leave Spotify? Do we really want our music to be contributing to this? Especially when they don't contribute to like any material, anything for musicians. And everyone's just like, yeah, let's get off. That's it. And then they talked to the label, Joyful Noise, great label. And I talked to Northern Spy like that week. And I was like, can we get the catalog off? Like, yeah, that's it. It was very simple in a way. But yeah, I don't care what other people do in a way. I think like for me, I try to focus on like as affirmative a vision as possible, because yeah, of course you're going to have people who co-opt or take advantage or whatever, or like, you know, it's a brand sort of like, it's like political theater or something. That's fine. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. We just need more people to be involved. And it's not everybody's thing, I guess, to do in their art, but we all have to figure out somewhere to be engaged. And for me, I feel that music has been one of these. I got this gift or whatever, talent or whatever it is. I've just started singing since I could open my mouth. And so, okay, how can I open my mouth and do something productive with it? And also having models, like being in Chicago, I have to name the AACM because when I read George Lewis's book, it was like the first year of grad school for me. A Power Stronger Than Itself, I'm sure everybody's like required reading for this community. And they were the model for me. I was like, how do we do this? Like that organization came out of looking at the Black Panther Party as a model. You know, they had a manifesto. It was explicitly political, you know, and we could talk about how it's evolved, but that's the root of what that was. And for me, it was like, that's the model. Abby Lincoln's like another Abby Lincoln and Max Roach. There's lots of people in this tradition, but I also grew up with punk and like socially engaged hip hop in the Bay Area, which like there was always, especially in Oakland, community organizing happening alongside shows. Yeah, exactly. So it was just like it seemed obvious, like going to Rage Against the Machine concert and like learning about Leonard Peltier, the indigenous activist, at the concert. Yeah, that's how I learned about that through music. So I was like, why wouldn't? Yeah, I wanted to replicate that, I guess.
Oh yeah, I think that's great because for me too, when I was like younger and coming into music and then like revolutionary ideas, but they were so tied. Yeah, and that's where you learn at shows like different like skill shares or different things. Zines,
punk zines, like so many things. Like the first times I heard radical ideas were really from the mouths of artists. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I think a lot of the censorship that we see as well. I mean, you see like with Kneecap in the UK, they like they tried to silence a lot of these artists. Didn't work. No, did not work. Only actually amplified the message. But that tells me, people are like, well, aren't you speaking to the choir? And like, what does it matter? It's like, no, it really, really. Also, I would say no. I actually was surprised, especially in the last few years playing in Europe. And, I remember in the last Elder Rooms record in 2019 was when I started to we were, the first record, there's a lot of discourse around, especially police brutality. There was a song on there that was dedicated to Eric Garner, who was killed by the NYPD. And that, it was interesting because people could kind of see themselves outside of that apparatus and say, yeah, of course, that's bad. That's wrong. And especially in Europe or somewhere else, they're like, you Americans are bad. It's like, they love to say that, right? I'm like, where do you think we came from? Where did this ideology come from? But I just, the more I started to connect all those dots, especially with people like Bell Hooks, like she has this like very simple phrase, imperialist, capitalist, white supremacist, patriarchy. And it's just that the idea that all four of these pillars rely on each other, they're intertwined, they need each other to exist. If you knock down one of those pillars, you can start knocking them all down. And so the band, I started to realize, I started to shift to really being explicit about these systems that we're all implicated in. You can no longer sort of separate yourself and say that they're bad. I don't participate in that. I'm a woman who is just trying to dismantle patriarchy in myself. It's deeply in there. None of us get to, be absolved of this work. But it can be a joyful work, and it can be, I really think about this idea of revolutionary optimism, and music is such a space of, it feels so empowering when you're at a concert, especially I remember as a young person, being at a punk show and going home because my with a sore neck because I've just been completely in my body. The band is angry, where everybody's fuck everything, during the Iraq War. That was so, it was so massive for, anger can be mobilizing, grief can be mobilizing. It's kind of how do we work with the energy that we have in a direction that we all want to move towards together. Directing the energy. And no, I like that. The revolutionary optimism. It kind of reminds me of another quote, hope is a discipline. Oh, the Mariama Kaba, who is a South African.
Yeah. And those type of things are very important to stick with. And you said it's a daily practice.
It's not,
or not daily.
Easy. Yeah. No, it is a daily practice, but I was going to say it's not easy. Yeah. I swing wildly between feeling that there is hope and that we are just headed down an irreversible path, right? But I think what else are we going to do? We have to survive, and all our survival is intertwined. I think it's easy to it's a survival mechanism, I think, for a lot of people to not want to accept that reality. But I do see it with the AI data centers and things like this, especially because it's impacting so many people. You see people across the political spectrum organizing together. Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think I don't know, as musicians, this is something Saul Williams said. I got to interview him in November. We did a panel at Guess Who with 2 South African musicians, also Asher Gemedze, who's this great drummer, and Masela Motana, and this Palestinian musician Didad Kalash, and we had like a panel. And Saul said, and he said this in the concert. He played with Carlos Nino. I know folks are familiar with Carlos in this room. He said every concert is a meeting. And I really I loved that, because I've been doing this thing for a long time where I talk to the audience and sort of introduce certain ideas, or there's even kind of a bit of a reading list in the set of Elder Ones. Like there's like references to Fanon and Ursula K. Le Guin, and and that way of phrasing it was like, you have a bunch of people in a room together. You actually have some power on stage. Yeah, you do. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do with it? So I was like, oh, it's a meeting. Everybody's invited to everybody came to this meeting. Let's what are we going to do?
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, it reminds me too, there is a quote from Sonny Rollins in his journal where he was like, the importance of playing music is to connect people to their own vitality.
Ooh, yeah.
And that it's the meeting of connecting you. The opposite of dehumanization is to make you feel human.
Yeah.
And the arts, that's what it does.
Yeah, it's more than just. I think maybe a lot of us probably grew up with this idea, if we grew up here, of that art is about self-expression, And it's not that it's not about self-expression. I certainly feel all of these projects, from Elder Ones to Neti-Neti, all the bands that, when I've been in Mary Halverson's band, it's still I am getting to express myself through my voice in her. That's what's so amazing about improvised music, is somebody can be the composer, and the composer is asking you to be yourself. Mm-hmm. That's individualism. I got to work with Muhal Richard Abrams.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, actually. Yeah, what that experience was like.
Life-changing.
Yeah.
Life-changing. He had asked me, I think he got my information from Robert Ashley, which is also really wild, because I worked with Bob I got to work with him until he passed, from 2011 until he passed. And or maybe through Tom Buckner or something, some connection like that. And so he didn't know a lot about me, but neither did I. It was 2013, so I hadn't even made my own music. I didn't know a lot about me either. And he asked me, "What's your music like?" And I was like, I was at a point where I was just starting. I was playing harmonium more. I took it out of the closet. Was starting to kind of work on the solo, more improvised music, and I kind of was faltering. He was like, make it, and then come back and tell me what it is. Don't worry about it. He's like, you have to make the music, then you'll know what it is. So I literally did that. I got a commission from Roulette in 2014, the year after I played with Muhal. And he had me sing in Tamil. He asked, he was like, do you sing in any other languages? And I was like, well, I speak Tamil, but I never sing in it. He's like, sing in it if you want. I was like, sure. It was the first, I had to ask my mom how to translate some of the poetry, because it's very complicated in our language. And he was one of those people who really pushed me to kind of just trust myself. So there is a self-expression to it, but I think maybe also because I come from a tradition and a culture where I learned to sing was in this communal singing tradition called bhajan, and that is a call and response form where it's everybody is singing, and I had to since I was 3.5, 4 years old, pick up a mic and lead. Everybody has to do that. The mic gets passed around, and so it was always collective. Mm-hmm. It was always that. So. It was self-expression in a way, and it wasn't in another way, or it was both. It was always those things together. So, I think that obviously jazz is so much of that tradition, but
did it feel natural going into jazz improvisation, coming from that background?
Yeah, I wasn't jazz trained. I was trained in Western classical voice, which in college by accident, kind of. I got a scholarship at a small liberal arts school in LA, and I didn't know that that's what studying music meant. It was it's just classical voice. And I took some things from it, but I really hated the hierarchical aspect of it, that the composer is here, the performer is down here. And so, Cecil Taylor is who seeing a video of him free improvise on E-Bomb. No, not E-Bomb's World. What am I thinking of? No, what was the archive? E-Bomb's World was all the insane videos.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Ubu Web. Yes, that's what you're saying.
The mask.
Yeah, it was Cecil like solo playing in all white. You know, it's from Imagine the Sound, I think. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell is he doing? It's just the first time I really saw free improvisation, and I was like, that is the most punk thing I've ever seen in my life,
yeah, exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
And just literally like freedom, like that kind of creative expression. It's like liberatory music. It's liberation music. So in the music itself is that the framework or the model for like how, you know, how free can we get out here? Mm-hmm. It's, you know, it models something that doesn't maybe exist in the world in a way, but we can kind of show people how, you know, like you show up in a town. Like I played a show at Bill and Ishmael's studio Marmalade on Friday with Alan Moore. We'd never met before. Just played. Look.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful practice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Is there? Yeah. Do we have any maybe audience questions? There's so much to talk about. I can go, and I know you have a podcast. Yeah, Outer National.
Yeah, the podcast is called Outer National. The first episode I did for it was with the great Angel Bat Daweed, and maybe I don't know how many people know, you know, how much she does.
True. It's true.
It's crazy. She works with like, you know, single mothers, like a particular group of that where she's working with babies and mothers. She's doing so much education work and parts that also like, I gotta say, it is crazy how segregated Chicago is.
It is.
And I think like that's something that she really like has, you know, she's so consciously thinking about like how to expand like the music, you know, this creative music practice like beyond kind of certain zip codes and communities. That's a great episode. But yeah, like every one of those conversations for me was eye-opening. Like Greg Saunier is like, we'll give you a full anti-imperialist reading list on that episode. Or I interviewed Ian Lynch from the band Lankum, this Irish band. He like gave, you know, like going through someone's personal history. It's like so intertwined with political history of Ireland, and it's been really, really amazing to talk to people. But I'm going to be continuing. Samora Pinder Hughes was the last guest, who does work around carceral systems. But yeah, there's a lot of. It's also part of the goal is to highlight musicians who are doing that work.
Exactly.
And so it feels and becomes more ubiquitous, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Thank you for doing that work.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I never wanted to be the Joe Rogan of the left, but here I am. I'm going to take us, across the finish line in 2028.
It's great. No, we love it. Yeah.
Kidding.
Oh, yeah, we'll bring the improvisers with you on the forefront.
Oh, yeah. It'll just be us, actually, like in the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
That's where I think we're heading.
Yeah.
Communal, just like we got to get out of this system. We can't do this. This is not going to last much longer.
Yeah. Probably like a few more decades if we're lucky.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. But I'm happy to answer a question or also.
Yeah. Anyone got any questions?
Yeah.
I have a question. Probably my own bias because right now I'm in a moment of like, what if this instrument, but that many more of it? But have you done vocal groups? Like obviously plenty where it's like there's a voice and there's other instruments, but.
The question is, have you done vocal groups before?
Yes, actually. I had a vocal quintet called Lines of Light with Charmaine Lee. God, who all was in that group? Charmaine Lee, Giancarlo Rodea, who I sang with, and Darius Jones had a vocal group. That's like kind of the first time I did a vocal group was Darius had a group called the Elizabeth Caroline Unit. We've been working together since 2012. But yeah, this group had Charmaine, and Giancarlo Rodea, and Emily Lesbro, who's another vocalist who worked with Darius. And God, I'm like blanking on everybody who was in that group. But I'm trying to restart. I'm trying to do more vocal ensemble work because I also do think it's kind of like the original. It's the original music, right? It's just like people singing together. And I also think vocalists are kind of weirdly marginalized in the creative music and experimental music scene. And vocalists are like some of the most badass people, like Isabel Crespo Pardo, Shara Lunnan, who's in History Dog with Luke Stewart and Chris Williams. Like, there's crazy vocalists right now. And so I want to partly do a group that's also based around the idea of like collective organizing and labor, and maybe bring in my research for the next year. I'm doing a fellowship that's like all around how labor organizing throughout history has been like a hub of both anti-colonial and anti-fascist organizing. And in India, in Tamil Nadu was the first labor union in India. And it was also like the first site of anti-colonial resistance. And when you look at India now, the farmers protests, it's the same thing. Like, they are the check on Modi's fascist regime in India. People don't understand that India is a fascist country, but I will tell you that here. But I can, I kind of want to look at the history of it, apart, like South Africa, apartheid, like labor was incredibly important. In Brazil also, like, and music, and how the music, both of workers' songs, but also the kinds of music that developed in those periods, like how, like Miriam Makeba in South Africa and a lot of the South African musicians. But that vocal group might be a place where we explore some of those songs, because it really is like you're a unit of people with just your bodies and your voices. There's something parallel to me there.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so I guess look out for that the next year or so.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, and a new Elder Ones record next year. Yeah, it's done. We just got to figure out who's going to put it out. But I'm very excited about this lineup. It's like Jason Nazary, insane. Lester St. Louis is playing bass. Matt Nelson, who's always been in the band, and Alfredo Colon, who's like, if you don't know him, he's this younger saxophonist in New York who's just... I'm just so excited. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I feel like it is a dark time, but there's so much energy actually to be harnessed if we can get up every day and regulate our nervous systems and grieve and process and do that. I think then we can tap into a lot of that energy. Yeah, be with people. Be deeply, fiercely. There's a term I heard the other day called neighboring. I think it comes from the Minneapolis organizers. That really stuck out to me as like, how do we be neighbors? Yeah. Like, really in a deep way. Like, do you know the folks? Like, now from doing some of the organizing that I've been doing in my neighborhood, Sunset Park, now I know the Juanita, the lady who's selling tamales. I know all the folks who work at the grocery store. Like, through this organizing, now I really know my neighbors. And I think, like, we're neighbors in a way. Like, I live in Chicago, but this is our neighboring community in terms of music. And what's cool about improvised music is, like, going around the world, it's like, when I'm in Berlin, I know who to call. When I'm in this place, I know who to call, That's really like the way that we can be strong, and they cannot defeat that. It's not possible.
AI cannot replicate it.
No, I watch this shit totally collapse. Yeah, it's not going to be good. It's going to be scary because we've banked our entire economic system in America on, and the petro-states have been backing it. And now that, because of the Iran war is like going down, it's not going to be a pretty next handful of years, but that's why even more so we need to really strengthen our bonds, because we're about to go through some horrific shit. But I'm optimistic about New York, Nixon 5, We're really feeling a lot of optimism. I'm trying to bring that here to Chicago.
Appreciate that. Yeah, bringing it here.
You know, that team's like, yeah, we're really like radicalizing around the Knicks right now, and Zoran, and all the amazing like socialist candidates, and there's something going on.
There is an exciting, and people to see that it works and that like it makes people's quality of life better. It brings people together. It's like, why would you be against it?
Actually.
It's fun, yeah.
Yeah. So I hope in Chicago, I don't know, I'm not quite as tuned in, although thank God I saw the Broadview 6, if you don't know who they are, that those charges were dropped. I hope that becomes precedent for the Prairie Land folks. Like each one of these cases is so massively important. And so I know there's a hardcore, like seeing how Chicago responded during that ICE siege last year was huge. Like for us in New York to see that, to see what happened in LA earlier in the year, and then Minneapolis, like it builds, you know. So I think, I feel hopeful. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Amirtha.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks for coming.